Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm just going to wait for a few more people to join the call. So we'll just stare at you and smile while we wait. Welcome again, everyone. We're just going to wait for a few more seconds to see if anyone else trickles in, but we'll get started very soon. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to utilize the Q&A box kind of throughout the panel. It's kind of at the bottom. I'm sure we're all very familiar with Zoom at this point, but we're all here as resources for you to share, the experience of transferring to Oxy. So feel free to use the Q&A box and to ask questions to any of our current students that are joining us today. Or we also have some admission officers as well as myself here on the call. A few of them are in the chat box and they'll be answering your Q&A questions that may be a little bit more specific, maybe about the admission process, but we can also answer some more student-specific questions kind of live in this panel. Awesome. I say let's get started. I'll just start by introducing myself and kind of why we're all here, and then we'll go around and have the students introduce themselves. My name is Ruby. I'm an admission counselor in the office. I am also an Oxy grad and an Oxy transfer. I transferred in the fall of 2018 and I graduated from Oxy this past May with the class of 2021. So I've been on this panel as a student many times. I'm very excited to be here as staff kind of running it. It's kind of like full circle moment for me. So I'm very excited to be here with you all today. We're going to be having just kind of a candid conversation about what it's like transferring to Oxy. We're going to be conversing with these current students that have joined with us today about kind of all the things that have to do with transferring, why they decided to come to Oxy, what the transition was like, if they have any advice for you all. So maybe let's get started with intros. Micah, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, my name is Micah. I'm a senior here at Occidental. I transferred in spring of 2020, so right before COVID. I went to Washington Lee. Now I'm here. I'm on the track team. I'm a senior fellow in the admissions office and a Barack Obama scholar.
Awesome. Let's have Kendall next.
Hi, everyone. So I'm Kendall. I'm a senior. I'm a sociology major, linguistics minor. I transferred from the University of Washington in Seattle in the fall of 2019. I'm on the swim team. I also work in admissions. I'm president of Transfer Student Union. So I'm very excited to be here. And I'm also in the Japanese club on campus.
Awesome. Thank you, Kendall. Charlotte?
Hi, everyone. I'm Charlotte. I am graduating in 2024. I transferred here from Syracuse University's design school. I'm a Soc major, like Kendall is, and I'm a member of TSU, which Kendall's the president of. And then I'm also in the literary arts magazine, The Fang. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Thank you, Charlotte. And then finally, Lily.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lily. I am a junior and I actually also just transferred. So it feels like I was just going through the whole application process myself. I'm a sociology major. I don't know if I mentioned that already. I'm involved with the Latinx Student Union Club here on campus, as well as the unofficial hiking club and TSU as well. I'm so happy to be here and hope to answer any of your questions.
Yay! So now that we're all introduced and we're all acquainted with each other, why don't we get started with maybe just going around and sharing what some of the reasons were to kind of why you transferred to Oxy, what led you to us, and why did you decide to transfer? Kendall, do you want to go first?
Sure. So there were two main reasons why I decided to transfer. One was that UW was such a big school, and coming into college, I wasn't sure what kind of college environment I wanted. So I just thought I would go with, the typical college experience, or however you describe that. But I quickly realized that being in a class with like 300 other students was not for me. And so I was looking for a smaller, more intimate learning environment. And also, I have been a year-round competitive swimmer for like 12 years now. And so UW doesn't have a team, and I really miss the team environment, you know, like the grind of practicing every day. And so Oxy had both athletics and the academic side. And so it's like the perfect fit.
Awesome. Thanks, Kendall, for sharing that. Micah, do you want to go next?
Oh, yeah. So I would say for the main reasons that I transferred here, I would say first, obviously, I think one of the big draws to Occidental is just, being in the city of Los Angeles. I went to Washington Lee, which is rural Virginia, which, the town's very small. So kind of when I was thinking about, being able to do internships or, being able to network, et cetera, being in a town that's 2 hours away from a larger city was not necessarily the best mix for me. So that was one of the main draws, and as well as, what Oxy could offer as opposed to Washington Lee, just in terms of like the campus climate, and being able to still have the small liberal arts feel. That's really what I was looking for, but just in a different environment than what I was getting.
Charlotte?
So Syracuse was this huge school in the middle of upstate New York. And because it was so big, it relied very heavily on Greek life for a lot of its social aspects. And I think that I, as a person, don't find Greek life very appealing. So I found between like the weather and the size of the campus and the amount of people that it was really difficult to meet people and then see them again. And so there I was a fashion design and sociology double major. And I decided to look for a smaller school that had a really strong sociology program where, by nature of being closer with my professors, I could bring in my interest of fashion design into my classes rather than trying to be a fashion design major and then talk about the academic side of it there. And Oxy was just a really good fit for that.
That's so cool, Charlotte. Thanks for sharing that. Lily, I'd love to hear about your experience and why you transferred to Oxy.
Thank you. Yes. So my experience was a little bit different just because I actually went to community college. I didn't start off at a 4-year. So I did community college, and I was lucky enough to go somewhere where so many classes were offered that our class sizes were pretty small. So I had that contact with my professor, and I knew that going into a 4-year, I wanted to keep that kind of environment of being able to approach professors, go to office hours, and where they knew you by name. Whereas maybe like a UC or a CSU, you would be lost in like a hall of 300 students, as Kendall said. So that was like my driving reason for wanting to go to Oxy. But as Micah also mentioned, being in LA itself has its benefits. So that was another huge reason for me wanting to go to Oxy. And yeah, I think those are like the main reasons why I chose Oxy.
Thank you, everyone, for sharing. Definitely one of the reasons why I transferred to Oxy was because it's in the city of Los Angeles, and because this city is just so cool and there's so many things to do. So I definitely relate to that as well. Why don't we also just talk a little bit about what the transition was like for you all to Oxy, and kind of anyone can jump in and answer this one.
Okay. My transition, it was interesting because I have family who live here. So I knew the area, but I wasn't so familiar with Eagle Rock specifically. And so it was kind of like exploring this new place, but also feeling like it was very familiar to me, just like very ground level. But the campus community was just noticeably more very inviting, and like people I had no idea who they were. They'd be like coming up to me on move-in day, like, can I help you with anything? And that was just a very different experience from my first year. And so that was the first thing that really popped out to me. And then it just really continued on when I started classes and, actually getting to know your professors, like Lily mentioned, and they remember your name and they are actually genuinely interested in getting to know you and your background. And so it was just reassuring that, like, okay, I think I picked the right place.
All right, yeah, just to go off of what Kendall was saying, I think, I'm still transitioning in a way, but the fact that we're coming out of such special circumstances where it's like, I'm not doing this alone. There's a bunch of like freshmen and sophomore that are also navigating this new campus with me. And then, Oxy is so small that you're bound to see the same faces every day. You create community, you create groups within your own classrooms, within your own halls. Even in like the cafeteria, people would just go up to you and sit down and have lunch with you. So Oxy is very, very inviting. And I think that is crucial when transitioning, because you don't have the same, group of friends that you may have had at your last school. So that's something that's very helpful for me.
Yeah, people here are like super friendly, and also something that I think is super unique about the school, especially someone coming from a school where there were a lot of like social divides among people, is how like willing everybody is to talk to literally anybody. Especially like, in my first few weeks here, I remember from my freshman orientation at Syracuse, everyone's super friendly and talks to everybody and everything. And then as the year goes on, people stop doing that. And also you kind of only have that sort of high energy response from people if they're other freshmen or like other new students. But I found here continuously that even like seniors in my classes are so nice and enthusiastic about like talking to me and, making friends and everything. And there's no like, oh, you can't like hang out with us because you're new here. And like, even in scenarios where, I took a shuttle to the airport over the long weekend, and every single person in that van was like trying to make new friends with everybody else in the shuttle. So it just was so like different from my old school, and so like open and welcoming from literally everyone on campus.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and to Charlotte's point about it being a year-long thing, given that I came in the spring, so everyone had already been on campus for a semester, all the freshmen and people had been integrated. I found it relatively easy to just, I would literally just sit in our marketplace here in the dining hall, and people would just come up. It's like, oh, you're new here. Like, what's your name? Where are you from, et cetera. So it was really, I guess, easy in a sense that people were curious to know, because it is such a small school, they recognize that you're new, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's definitely an opportunity for you and people just to reach out because they want to get to know who's around on campus and, in the community, because they really want to be closer to people who are there.
Yeah, totally. I also love the Oxy community. Obviously, I stayed, so I do think that like just kind of one of the most special things about Oxy is kind of the students that go here and are just a real sense of community. Kind of similarly, where have you all found the most support at Oxy? Was it through your peers, through a specific professor, through a club or organization? I'd just love to hear from all of you, and anyone can start us off. Or maybe Charlotte, do you want to start us off?
Sure, yeah. I would highly recommend the transfer students on campus. I am like still super close with my transfer orientation group. Lily was in my group and she's literally in the same room as me while we're doing this call. Then, like right after this, we're headed to a transfer student dinner, and like it's basically just been a ton of transfers that I've run into on campus from orientation at TSU being like, oh, we can just hang out with like nice catering. And I think that there's also just something so like nice about transfer students where they've had this experience of realizing that they're not happy where they are and that they need a change. And so there's this like sense of self that is very unique to the experience and gives you this like automatic connection to people. So like I just had love the transfers. They're so great. Yeah, I like feel very welcome on the community with the transfers. And then like through that, everybody has roommates who aren't transfers or like has friends in classes who aren't transfers. And then through that, meeting more people on campus. So I found a lot of community in the transfers, but it's not my only community on campus, which is like so lovely.
I think one unique aspect of Oxy is that I'm a type of person who likes to ask a lot of questions because I like to know everything before I start something. And so if, I would, reach out to someone in the dean of students office, and then I didn't expect for those connections to maintain later on. And so, but they have, which I found to be really great, because that kind of a testament to the Oxy culture and how it's like a culture of caring. I think that's like what we talk about a lot on campus. But yeah, if you reach out to someone, they're most likely going to keep in contact with you. And if they see you on campus, they can be like, oh, how did that thing go? And yeah, it's nice that someone is out there caring and paying attention.
Yeah, to go off of that as well, the professors, my goodness, they are so helpful, especially in the transition. Personally, I mean, my advisor was also an Oxy student, and she also transferred, so she empathizes with me a lot. And starting off like the semester, I would go to office hours and like let the professors know that I'm a transfer student. That'd be like doing weekly or bi-weekly check-ins just to make sure that I was transitioning effectively. And they were all super helpful, super loving and supportive. And then like they offered extensions or feedback, which is super helpful. And again, in a classroom so small, they make such a welcoming environment where you can go up to your professor and at any point and literally ask questions or just chat even.
I really think that they covered all the bases. I feel that especially at Oxy, just given how connected everyone is, it's kind of like wherever you get your foot in first, kind of use that as a platform to go and branch out and find those resources and find those systems that, will really help you in whatever you need. And it's just kind of unique in the way that, if you want something or need something, odds are, like if you ask just anyone, they're going to either know somebody or be able to help you directly. So it's just kind of nice wherever you can get your foot down is a pretty good place to start building your system of support.
Yeah, and I think, since we're kind of talking about the ways in which you were supported, maybe let's also talk about maybe some of the challenging parts of transferring. So what would you say has been maybe one of the more challenging parts about transferring in general, but maybe also transferring to Oxy?
I mean, I can go first on this one. Again, I came in at the semester mark, and while there were people who were pretty open, I do think it's still at times, it can be a little frightening. Not everyone has the personality of some people on campus, so some people might recognize you're new, but just kind of look at you and they want you to engage rather than coming up to you. So from the social aspect, it's like, sometimes it's a little bit of effort to just put yourself out there and find groups. And I also think, classes, while eventually you do get what you need, and especially being a transfer, there's a lot of faculty to help. It can be a little frightening or nerve-wracking at first when you're registering for classes after everyone. At least in my situation, I register for classes like 2 or 3 days before the semester started. So kind of like a little stressful at the beginning, but now, I'm gonna graduate on time with everything that I need. So.
Yeah, to add on to that, yeah, we did have to register a couple of days prior to like school starting, but at the same time, even if the classes were full, you would be able to reach out to your professor and they would let you, and they would give you a code or accept you in the class, even if there was a max. And then like to go off of again what Micah was saying, yeah, it does kind of sometimes feel like maybe you're walking into like a middle of a conversation, just because everyone's already known each other for 3, well in my case 3 years now. So but as Micah said, like it really is just up to you to just make the best out of the situation, regardless of what college you choose. like what you make it to be what it will be. And if sometimes it just takes time to get to know people or to see the familiar faces again. But yeah, that was a challenge at first, for sure.
I think at least for me, talking more generally about the transfer process, when I decided to transfer it, a lot of what I was feeling was like questioning myself, like, is it worth it? Like it's gonna take a lot out of me to, one, go to school at this college, but then also, look ahead to what my life could be at this new college. And so I think in the midst of it, it was a lot to, dissect, like, what am I trying to get out of my college experience? And I think that if you really look at what's important to you, it makes things clear as to where you actually want to transfer to. And so, like what Lily and Micah have been saying, that it is what you make out of it. And I think that you have to expect some hiccups in the road, because transferring is not like a very talked about thing. Well, I feel like it should be. But yeah, so that's my little advice.
Yeah, I would say, in terms, like, kind of combining what Lily and Kendall have said, that I think before I transferred, I definitely had that mentality of like, school is just what I make of it. And so even though I didn't really enjoy my previous school, I spent my entire freshman year thinking that if I just tried harder, or if I just met different people, or if I, did XY thing, or like dyed my hair, I would be happier at that school. And I've realized after transferring that, school is what you make of it. When you're in an environment that makes it easier for you to like be happy and to be yourself, and that it's, if you feel like you're in the wrong place, like, there might be places out there that are better for you to, put yourself out there and to like make the most of your experience. And that, it's not always your fault if you're not finding what you need in the environment that you're in. And that, like, in conclusion, highly recommend transferring.
Sorry to jump back in, but to build off of like Charlotte's point, I think a lot of the issues that we're describing aren't unique for transfer students at Oxy. I think these are experiences that you're going to get with every school, and I think Oxy has a lot of things that can help mitigate a lot of these these preemptive fears that people might have in terms of transferring, whether it be the community or how, like Lily was saying, even though we register later, the teachers are aware of that. They hold spaces for transfers so that they know that there's going to be kids transferring, so they try to adapt to that. So it's like a lot of the fears that I feel, or struggles that we had, I don't think are unique to, I think they're just standard things that transfer students have to go through. But I definitely think there's value where when you're doing that at a place that is there to support you.
Yeah, thank you all for sharing that. Definitely, I think transferring can be really scary. I think it was definitely scary for me. It sounds like you all had some fears in the process, but my experience was similar to all of you, where it was definitely like, oh my God, what am I getting myself into? But also, once I got here, I was like, okay, like I feel like there are people looking out for me, even though like this may be like a little overwhelming. I think also I'd really love to hear from Lily about what your experience was like transferring from a community college to a school like Oxy.
Yeah. So going into a community college, I knew that I wanted to transfer to a four-year, but I was pretty sure that I wanted to do UC. It wasn't until I actually started going to class. I was lucky enough to attend my first semester before COVID. So that's when I was like able to build all these relationships with my professors, some of who I still talk to and who wrote my letters of recommendation to be able to go to Oxy. So it was a little different because I think community colleges are more centered towards UCs or CSUs. There's like a set of like classes recommended for you to take to be able to transfer, whereas like transferring to a private university, it could be a little more difficult. You would have to do a little more research, which was my case. And I was lucky enough to be surrounded by like professors that took their time to like sit down with me, or like even advisors at my community college. And then I also reached out to Oxy admissions, I think it was like the beginning of last year. So the process, it's just your drive that eventually gets you to where you want to be, whether it be like the research part of it or the application part of it. As long as you're committed to where you want to go, I think it's completely possible.
Yeah, and then also I'd love to hear what your transition has been like academically and even socially, kind of going from a California community college to Oxy.
Yeah, I think it was definitely a little intimidating at first, knowing that I was coming from like community colleges, just because socially, you know, it's perceived as a little less maybe prestigious or a little less academic. But I think that it shows grit I think it shows grit that I worked for it and that I earned my spot here. So yeah, I was worried about, you know, the academic aspect of it. But as I said, I reached out to my professors earlier and I let them know, hey, you know, I transferred from a community college. I understand that maybe like, you know, your expectations may be a little more rigorous. This is why like I'll be checking in more frequently, making sure that like I'm grasping the whole concept of like the course. Or so yeah, I think the professors absolutely work with you and absolutely are here to make sure that you thrive and that you're reaching your full potential. So I'm so grateful to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing, Lily, and thank you everyone for sharing. I think let's also talk a little bit about what kind of cool things you've been doing now that you're here at Oxy, now that you are officially part of the Oxy Transfer Club. Maybe I would love to hear from all of you kind of how you have engaged in the city, how you've engaged kind of with the Oxy community and kind of getting out into the local neighborhood, into the larger city, whether that's with a class or kind of even more socially. And maybe Kendall, do you want to start?
Yeah, so I can start with, I mean, going into LA, it's like a nice excursion from campus because we are in like a more suburban area. It's fun that LA, like downtown LA, is like 15 minutes away. And so it like I can apply what I'm learning in class, like whether it be an education class or sociology class, to like what I'm seeing in LA, especially because it's such a metropolitan area. But transitioning to how I've become involved in Oxy, I have felt that it has been very accessible to join things that I am truly interested in. And there haven't been barriers or any like hiccups in trying to join things. It's very inclusive. And so yeah, like even applying to things, if you don't get something that you really wanted, there's always something else that you can join. Yeah, I feel like everyone else can attest to that, but yeah.
Micah, do you want to go?
I don't know if you were still talking because
No.
What I guess when it comes to like engaging the LA community, like me personally, I have an internship that's in Century City, so it's about like 30-ish minutes away, depending on when I leave. Traffic is sometimes a little crazy, but you know, being in Los Angeles, it really gives you an opportunity to kind of reach into what you're studying and be able to apply it in the real work setting. You know, there's through various different things on campus. We have a lot of partnerships and relationships with a lot of different LA-based organizations where students can get an internship and be able to apply, you know, what they've been learning and also learn on the job and kind of get that real world experience and then bring that back to the Oxy community. And even, you know, be able to count that as credit while you're attending this school. So that's what I'm doing right now as part of, I just filled out the paperwork yesterday for it, but little late, but I'll be able to count the internship that I have as credit at Oxy, and I think that's really just a value added piece of being in Los Angeles. There's so many different options around to really, if you think that you might be interested in exploring a different field in the workforce, you can try it out, stay close to school, and count that as kind of, it is very much a learning experience, and being able to kind of incorporate all of that into your Oxy into your time at Oxy, I think is definitely beneficial in how I've been able to incorporate being in Los Angeles with my Oxy experience.
Yeah, I'd also like to say that though we're not centered like right in the middle of LA, it's super accessible through like our own Bengal bus, or our like the communal system, or the commuting system, sorry, is very easy to navigate here, as well as just students. Like an example that I like to use is there's like an unofficial hiking group. It started with one person like emailing the whole student body about like hiking, and now there's like 80 of us in a group chat. And then like people will just be like, hey, I'm going to this certain spot in LA this weekend. Does anyone want to come? And then like we'll respond, or like you just get to meet new people, and it's like a safe space because everyone's a student at Oxy, so everyone. So exploring LA, even if you don't have a car, is relatively super easy.
Yeah, I would say it's easy without a car, but there are definitely also moments where like I wish I brought mine. But then that turns into a social thing, because that means like I figure out which friends of mine have the same class breaks that I do, and then we're just like, oh, like let's make a CVS trip, and then CVS turns into like CVS and lunch and like hanging out, and then being off campus for most of the day, and then coming back in time for classes and dinner on campus, and then like events around the area. And even just like I literally spent this afternoon in downtown with a friend of mine, and that was like super fun and accessible. But then there's also just stuff like in the area here. There's a road called York, like a 10-minute walk away from campus, that has a ton of really cute like coffee shops and stuff. And then there's also like a lot of taco trucks nearby. So like literally probably twice a night every weekend, my friends and I end up getting tacos for like $2 at 2 a.m. and they're very generous with the guacamole. It's great. Yeah, so it's like it's not like we're limited to what we can do just by being in Eagle Rock. There's stuff around us, which is really nice.
Yeah, I definitely love this area. I wish I still lived in this area post-grad. I definitely really missed being able to walk to York, and like it being just like such a short walk over to go grab ice cream at Magpies or whatever. But I would also, I know you kind of all mentioned things that you really love about Oxy when you're talking about Los Angeles, but also just kind of throughout the session. But I would love to hear from you all kind of what your favorite thing about Oxy is. Lily, do you want to go first?
Tough question. I think, we've all kind of touched base on it, but just the environment, even like Oxy's main, like, what is it, like mission statement about like equity and social justice, like you can really see that throughout campus. And like everyone's here for the same reason. So it's pretty easy to find like your community here. So that's one of the things that I really loved about Oxy, that it didn't take a whole lot for me to find people that I really like got along with.
I think my favorite part about Oxy is when classes get out and everyone is just all on the quad and you bump into people that you know, and it just makes it feel like I have people here that I can go to, and like you just meet a lot of people and form these small or large connections, and yeah, it's very comforting.
Yeah, I would agree. The people are like by far my favorite part. I also feel like everybody on campus is interesting. Like that's like such a strange thing to point out, but like, I don't know, I haven't had a boring conversation with anybody, because even people that you like, not to judge books by their covers, but even people that you think like you're going to be like, oh, this is just small talk, end up having like such fascinating things to say. And everybody here has at least like one thing that they're super passionate about. And so it's just really cool to be around a bunch of people who are like super smart and passionate and, are willing to talk about those things and to teach you about them. And then like you leave the conversation being like, man, I should study up more on like garbage collectors, labor unions, just because like everybody here has a lot of, exciting things going on in their lives. Like they're very multifaceted people.
Yeah, and I really hate to beat a dead horse, but the people at Oxy really is like my favorite thing here. And really to Charlotte's point, I think the other day it was like 2 a.m., 2:30, I don't even know. I went to the bathroom and I ended up talking with a guy in the bathroom for like an hour and a half. So it was just like you never know who like you're just gonna strike up a conversation with and like just really get into it. And this is, where it's 4 a.m. We're like, oh yeah, we should probably go to bed. But it's just kind of like I love being in a community where there's a lot of intelligent, nice, just people who can really carry a conversation. And you never know what you're going to get, which I think is also great. There's so many different types of people that are around Oxy. It's like there's really no topic that somebody doesn't have some grasp on. And so I love being able to walk through the quad or sit in the MP and just like sometimes I'll sit because I don't have a lot of class on Fridays. So it's like I'll just sit in the MP all day and different people will come and we'll have the range of conversations that I have over the course of like 5 hours is just wild. So I love being able to just, kind of get taken into these different worlds and intellectual conversations with, without really even having to leave at all. So.
I love those descriptions of Oxy. That just like warmed my heart because like I agree. Okay, so I just have one more kind of final question for you all before we jump into Q&A from all of our participants. Also, this is just a reminder, if all of the participants who are listening, please send in questions for the students to answer live in the Q&A box that's just down below. But so yeah, maybe while they're answering this question, to ponder on what you might want to ask these current students about transferring to Oxy. And then while our participants do that, I would love for you all to share maybe some advice for students who are currently thinking about transferring, who are in the process of transferring. Just any advice about transferring to Oxy.
Trust your gut. And if a school, it's a fine line, because if you have this image of a school that you really want to attend, but it just doesn't feel like you're going to mesh, don't go, because it'll just, you don't want to go through the same experience again. And so I think doing what is best for you and kind of blocking out all that extra noise is really going to benefit you in the long run.
Yeah, I would say, sorry, Lily, go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, I would just say like, don't assume that you're in this alone. I think like, the first couple of weeks, it was like me in the dorm my entire day. I wouldn't go out, and then like I reached out to a friend, and then she was going through the same thing. So then like we both just like got out of our little nooks and went like to study together in the library. And then like, I don't know, just don't be afraid to reach out if you feel like you're struggling, or even if like you just want to have lunch with someone you met on the quad, or like just don't be scared, I guess, to just like meet people.
Yeah, I'd say, and to that point, like really, especially coming to a small school, just put yourself out there a little bit. I think people here want to know about you. People want to learn about you. So don't be afraid to put yourself out and explain who you are, where you're from, and like, you know, what you're interested in, because I think there's a ton of people here who are just gonna latch on to who you are as a person. And then that's gonna be, you know, you can just ride with them the rest of your time at Oxy.
Yeah, I would say my like transfer advice, I kind of touched on it earlier, that like, you know, if you feel unhappy where you are, like it's always good to put in effort to be happier. And sometimes that, you know, the way that you do that is just by leaving where you are. Um, and so like it's not gonna ruin your life. Because that was something that I was so afraid of when I was transferring. Is that like, you know, if you're somewhere where it doesn't work for you, like the problem isn't with you, it's with the place. So, you know, it's worth it to put in effort to be somewhere where you'll be happier. And then like it'll be easier to put an effort to yourself there. Yeah.
Awesome. That was all great advice. Hopefully all of our participants have soaked it all in and they're going to use that in their transfer process. But let's jump into some Q&A. We have a few questions from the students who are watching. So let's start with, what study platform does Oxy use? Like Canvas, Blackboard? Who wants to answer this one? Maybe Kendall, since you're kind of our vet of Oxy transfers.
I guess so. We use Moodle, and at UW we use Canvas. But I find Moodle easier to use, a little more intuitive. But yeah, I like Moodle.
Awesome. Yeah. I feel like we approve this message. We use Moodle. Yeah. Okay, next question. What is your favorite part of campus, and where do most transfer students live on campus? Or maybe let's just start with what is your favorite part of campus?
It's sunny. It's warm. I'm from the East Coast. It's so nice to be able to like go outside and have there be people like just in the warm weather. And you know, it's easy to go places because of the warm weather.
I think my favorite part of campus is probably the marketplace. That's that's where I hang out. Everyone goes through there to eat, so I see a lot of my friends. It's warm, so I can sit outside on the patio, do my work. But I just love kind of like sitting there and just seeing the entire school come through.
I think my favorite part of campus is like we have two main academic buildings on campus, and then there's these big staircase and then the Obama stairs, and it's just feels very college like. I don't know, it's hard to describe, but it's a very open space and there's places to sit so you can do your work there. But yeah, like calms me, so that's good.
Yeah, I love the like huge trees on like these big lawns, because they put out like lawn chairs so you can work outside, you can read outside, and like when it's so sunny, you can just like sunbathe and like read your assignments. That's like my favorite part about campus.
Totally. And then to kind of answer this person's second question and another question, kind of what is dorm life like as a transfer student? Do transfer students live with non-transfer students? Maybe just talk about your experience kind of with residential life on campus being a transfer student.
I know that this year, because of COVID, a bunch of transfers from Lily and my year were told that they wouldn't have housing on campus. So we have like a few friends who are in apartments off campus, some with other transfers, most with like a combination of transfers and then also returning students. But a lot of the other transfers are on campus. And, you know, my roommate's also a transfer, but we're in a hall with like no other transfers. So it's a good place to meet people who, you know, are returning students. And then I know that a lot of the other transfers got placed with just returning students. So it's kind of a unique thing that I'm with someone who's also new to campus.
Yeah, I think it varies from person to person, but I think that Oxy, I don't know, I've noticed that most students do live on campus, so they do accommodate many students, and I was lucky enough to have a spot. I live actually in the Obama dorm. And I have 2 roommates and they're both returning students. So I think that's also helpful in the transition, because like I go out with them, I meet their friends. They were kind of like my gateway of like meeting new people and like becoming familiar with the campus. Like they were the ones that gave me like a tour. And so that's something that I did enjoy about being able to dorm on campus.
Yeah, I think that's one of the beneficial things is that they don't really like section off a place for transfer students in the dorms. And I think that is an asset when you're thinking about like just all the interactions that you're going to have, whether that's in the common room, in the bathroom, like just in terms of just meeting people, like you're going to be acquainted with with your transfer class and other transfer students. So I think it's good that they kind of just put you in the mix with all the non-transfers, and they kind of separate just by grade. So there's like freshman dorms, and then there's upperclassmen dorms, and so wherever you get placed, most likely going to be an upperclassman if you guys are all transferring. So just in one of those dorms.
I mean, I think everyone touched on, the main points, but yeah, Oxy does a really good job of meshing the different classes in housing. And it's not like you're pigeonholed into being a transfer in everything that you do, especially not with housing. Yeah.
Awesome. And then we have a few questions about academics as well. So let's start with are your classes mostly lecture based or discussion based? And I'm sure this will vary kind of depending on what classes you all take. So majority of our courses are discussion based in general, but share your experiences.
All of my sociology classes are discussion based, but I've taken many language classes, and those are more lecture plus just asking straight up questions to your professor. So less discussion based in those classes. And I mean, I don't operate in STEM, but I have heard that they're more like lecture based. I think that's right. But yeah, if I'm wrong, please correct me.
No, yeah, I agree. I think it definitely depends on the subject. Like I am taking a biology class and it's lecture after lecture after lecture, whereas like my sociology or writing classes, they are more lecture based, discussion based, which I really, really enjoy because I get to hear all like my classmates and we get to like discuss the material that we have read about. Or yeah, I enjoy the discussion based classes, I think, more than the lecture ones.
Awesome. I was a math major. A lot of my courses were quote unquote lecture based, but it's probably not, the type of lecture that is like depicted in movies in larger schools where you're like in a room of 300 people. It was like me and 8 other kids learning about partial differential equations, and we were just like hammering our professor with questions. So it's definitely a little bit more discussion based for a lecture based course. That was definitely my experience as an Oxy student. And then we have a question about credits and how many of your credits transferred to Oxy.
I'm like a great person to answer this because I transferred from art school. So when I got here, Oxy was very much like, wow, you've done a lot of art electives. Because, my entire curriculum at my old school was basically like foundations for design school. But they have you can very easily appeal for transfer credits. You just need to fill out this form and then you speak to the head of the department that you're trying to get the credit for, and then you send it to the registrar and your advisor approves it. And basically they'll just ask for, a syllabus or like a project outline or the course description so that you can send them a little bit of like a summary of what, that class was. And then a lot of professors tend to be very accommodating to that because they understand that transfers have like strange credit situations. And I've also found that like accessing the core classes, because that was where I had a lot of issues since I didn't do core or like gen ed stuff at my old school. People are like very helpful about making sure that you get where you need to go. and that a lot of professors, if you reach out to them, understand that you need to take those classes. And also advisors tend to be like, they tend to come up with ideas for core classes that you need that you weren't even aware of, because they can be like, oh, like you're in this major and like you need, you know, a regional focus credit, take this one and it'll count for both things. And so everybody's like super accommodating. And, you know, even if you don't get a lot of stuff that transfers right away, you can, you know, you can make it work, and you can advocate for yourself relatively easily.
I think one point of concern for me when I was transferring my credits was how coming from a school on the quarter system would transfer to a school on the semester system, but it wasn't a problem at all because Oxy just converts the quarter system to the semester system, and it just looks a little different. But yeah, don't be alarmed.
You can go ahead, Micah.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say too. I think for me, it wasn't really. It's not even like a question of whether your credits transfer. Most of my credits transferred over, but one thing that's like transfers, we have to meet what's like residency requirements. Jeez, can't get that word out, but it's like 64 credits at Oxy. So essentially, you can transfer in however many credits that you want, as long as you still take 64 credits at Oxy. So for me, it was like there's one class that was kind of, I could have pushed across, but I still would have to take, you know, one of my econ classes at Oxy. So it didn't even make sense for me to kind of like transfer it over because I needed to take it at Oxy anyway. So it wasn't worth going through the effort to get it to transfer.
Awesome. Thank you all for sharing. And then we have a few questions about what exercise and athletics are like at Oxy. So a student asks, are there areas around campus or in campus where students go to work out? And then also someone's particularly interested in what the track team is like at Oxy. And I know that Micah, you're involved in track and field. So, and then Kendall's also a student athlete. So maybe just talk about what it's like being an active young person on our campus.
Micah, do you want to talk about track first?
Yeah, I was just looking at I just looked up Carleton's track team. But no, I mean, how is track at Oxy? Yeah, I think one of the things about D3 is that you really are a student athlete first, or a student before you're an athlete. So like, for instance, I'll just go to, like, I have practice that's supposed to be going on now, but I just did it earlier in the day when I had time, and because I had this obligation. So coaches are super, you know, understanding that if you have a class or a club conflict that you really want to attend, you know, they're pretty lenient in terms of like scheduling. If I can get my workout in the morning, I can do it in the morning. And just, you know, as long as you have that open line of communication with them, it's really flexible. But that doesn't mean that we're not competitive, right? A couple of the guys, it's cross country season right now. Unfortunately, we don't have an indoor track team. So like outdoor track doesn't really start until the spring, but cross country, they're in Illinois, I think, right now, competing. So it's like, you know, selective few. If you can compete like that, the coaches will gladly get you into different meets, regardless of where it is, so that you can really show off, you know, all that you've been working towards.
And as to like general places that you can exercise on campus, there is a gym. There's like an athletics area on campus. So we have obviously the track, the pool, and when like varsity teams aren't practicing, students can go and use the track, go and use the pool, and then as well as the gym that is open to all students.
Cool. Great questions from everyone. I think that's all from us. Does anyone have any kind of parting words for our hopefully prospective transfer students to Oxy? I'll give you my parting words. This has been just the most meta experience because I was a transfer. I love transfers. I founded the Transfer Student Union at Oxy, so something that's really important to me. We have a really unique experience being a small liberal arts college that admits a cohort of transfers every semester. So we have a really sizable transfer community at Oxy, and we're prepared to have transfer students, which is kind of rare for a school of our size, and it's rare for liberal arts colleges. So you're getting a really kind of well-rounded transfer experience coming to Oxy. And I always felt like not only was like my identity as a transfer like acknowledged and seen, but I was also so much more outside of that. I was, an Oxy student. I was involved in Greek life. I was doing all the things across campus. I was involved in orientation, but I also was still always kind of like my transfer self. And I still live with my transfer friend who I met on my first day at Oxy, even post-grad. We've been roommates for 3 years running now. So that's just my little spiel about how I'm so happy to be here. And this was just a great time. And hopefully, we see you all at Oxy at some point. But thank you so much for joining us. There's some links in the chat for you all if you want to kind of peruse the things that we've been talking about on our website. But again, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to our current students who have come and chatted about their experience transferring to Oxy. And have a great evening or morning or afternoon, wherever you are. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.